Hey everybody, welcome back. We're gonna win this one. And like, that's because I'm gonna play as Isaac. And I'm gonna go to the chest and I'm gonna be better this time. What is this? What is this? Is this the pity timer because I'm bad at the game? That's an HP upgrade, baby. Is that... Are we on hard mode? Am I not on hard mode? Is everything okay? What does that mean? Why is my game so laggy? What's happening? It's all going wrong, man. Hold on. Have I just never seen that before? Has that always been there? Isaac, Repentance, Purple Heart, under map. What is this? Purple mark under map. Just give it one moment, please. Just give it one moment. I'm loading the subreddit of Isaac. It tells you the curses you have. What? Really? Dude, you learn something new every day in some ways, in so many ways. I forgot what blood bombs do for you as well. Have I forgotten all of the Isaac value that I've ever had? I know it gives you HP up. That's valuable. It creates creep, but it doesn't give you 5 bombs? Is that what it is? It's not like you stand in it and you heal. I'm losing it, man. I will admit, you know, I'm not at my best today. Had a bit of a poor sleep last night, which is fine. I only bring it up because it makes me look better. Makes me look like, hey, people go from like, how'd you forget that, to like, oh, that's rough. It wasn't really rough, I just, you know. It's the weirdest kind of insomnia, because I wasn't, like, mad, which is what normally happens. I'm like, why am I not asleep yet? I can't believe I'm not asleep yet. This one was just like... I just like laid in bed listening to a podcast for like 2.5 hours waiting to get tired, and it just didn't happen. And then of course the next thing you know is it's like we have a rooster that wakes us up in the morning. Oh, you don't have an alarm rooster? It's all the rage. It's how Mother Nature intended us to wake up. But yeah, it was just like, man, most nights I would like be tired, but today for whatever reason I'm not that tired. I don't understand. Maybe it's because I watched an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm before bed too. I was so tickled from Larry David's escapades that in my head all I could hear was dude, it's kind of crazy too. Like, so Larry David, there was a tweet that went viral. Semi-viral if you're in the Curbiverse. That was Larry David has literally like looked the same since the first season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And it's not true. He is aged. If you put a side-by-side photo of like Larry David circa the year 2000, 2001 when Curb started to air, and 2021, he does look different. He looks a little older, but it's kind of insane. Like, he's very, very close. It honestly, like, the photo from 2000 kind of looks like, let's consider that the base case. And then 2021 is like, oh, maybe he had, like, maybe he's had a rough night last night or something like that. You know, maybe he didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Maybe he was so amused thinking of his own jokes. But the thing that's also, like, crazy on top of that, and you know what? I'm willing to take this to give us an arcade chance next floor. I kind of hoped we'd get a little extra sauce, but that's okay. There was an episode of Seinfeld I watched recently from the early 90s, like 94, 95. I guess it's more like the mid-90s. But either way, where Larry David is in it, he plays Frank Costanza's lawyer, and he looks exactly the same as he did in the year 2000. So I actually think Larry David, like, and I can relate to the first part of this. I think maybe he like aged like milk when he was younger. I don't mean that as an insult, but when you go bald at a young age, immediately, like, you know, one day people are like, yeah, you look like you're about maybe like 22. The next day people are like 33. But since then, he's like remarkably well preserved. He must take good care of himself, because like he's 74 or something now. So he stayed in a pretty pristine condition since getting to that point. You know what I mean? Kind of? Not really? Okay. I'm just saying, man. Like, I am starting to reach that age where like 74 doesn't seem that old to me, and yet 40 is like so old that I'm like, I can't even fathom that it's basically around the corner. I have now reached the I've reached the age where when people insult me, they insult me by calling me 40-ish. And back in the day, like on Xbox Live, if you wanted to get under somebody's skin, you would be like, dude, you sound like you're 30. And that was like, whoa, 30 and still playing video games. You gotta remember, we're millennials, you know? We were from an edgier time. You know, we're like, I remember having conversations with friends when I was in like middle school about like, when do you think you'll stop playing video games and become a real adult? We were like, I don't know, like when I'm old, when I'm like 22 maybe, and I have like a stable career. Let's check this out first. I'll take the pentagram. I'll re-roll this. Sure, you know what? I will take that. Hero's Medallion. I think it's going to be a speed upgrade. I could take it. Still got it, baby. I remember getting insulted on Halo 2, because this is like a real story. But someone on Halo 2 on Xbox Live, I was beating them, and they said, whatever, dude, you sound like you're 30. And then I said, I'm 17, and they said, whatever, you probably live in your parents' house still? And I was like, I do. I'm 17. That's not like an own. That's like, of course. Like, if you are 19 and you live outside of your parents' house, I'm not going to say it makes you a better person, but it's kind of a flex, right? Like, oh, you got your own place at 19. Wow, look at that independence. If you got your own place at 17, it's like a cause for alarm. That's a scary situation. You're like, are you crazy? You're 17. You can't even like, you know, can't even get a credit card without your parents being at the appointment. How did you sign the lease? I don't get it. So this run, by the way, is looking mighty nice so far, right? I forgot about it being actually bad. That's fine. It's better than fine. It's good. Good, better than fine. Peepo G, write that down, please. Peepo G. No, thank you. I say no thank you because I want my HP to preserve me, and I want my money to buy deals with the devil in the future. But anyway, nowadays, it's funny how culture changes, right? Like, I can't pretend to know what it's like to be 17 in 2021. So correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be. But the vibe I kind of get when I was a kid, getting out of the house, I'm not saying I grew up in the 1950s, but when I was a teenager, like, the concept of being out of the house was like, you would sacrifice a lot you would like financially put yourself in a bit of a bind to not live with your parents anymore. You would, you know, live in just decrepit, you know, garbage factories basically to just to get a little shred of independence. And I feel like now the vibe I get, and part of this is, you know, the normalization of it happening more and more because of the, you know, housing crisis and stuff like that. But I think the vibe now is people are like, you know, live at home as long as you can until, like, you either can't stand it anymore or you, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm trying to, because, like, I would hate to live with my parents now, but it's not a knock on them. It's just because I've had, like, I don't know, close to 15 years of independence. I have my own habits in my life. I have my own routines. They have their own routines. Like, when my mom is here, she still asks me to, like, text her when I get home from stuff, which is nice, don't get me wrong. But it's also, like, it's really hard to snap back into. She's like, text me when you get home. And I'm, you know, then I forget to text her when I get home because as soon as I step in the door, I'm starting to, like, you know, work on my own stuff. And then 2 hours later, she's like, did you make it home? And I'm like, yeah, of course. It's like a, you know, a 5-minute drive or something like that. It was no big deal. Now, it's nice, don't get me wrong. That, oh, the streamer complains his mom cares about him so much. I'm just saying it's the kind of thing that as, like, a grown man, and, like, not just recently grown, but, like, you know, an antique we're starting to come across here. Are things from the 80s antiques yet? Late 80s. I'm not trying to flex here. But, like, you know, you develop your own autonomy, your own habits. You're used to answering to nobody but yourself. I'm sure it's kind of like, depending on your parents, it can be annoying, even if they're, you know, very nice about it. Or otherwise are mental. Because they got their own habits, too, right? They're probably like, oh, you know, I thought I would never have to share my house with another, like, adult that isn't my spouse ever again. Now, all of a sudden, I got somebody that, you know, they stay awake until 4 a.m. watching Arcane on Netflix. I had to pick something. I'm sorry. Watching reruns of The Good Place on the flat screen and, you know, waking me up at 4 in the morning. Just inconsiderately. But regardless, now I feel like the vibe that I get, and I could be wrong, is that maybe people would like to live away from home, ideally, once they reach a certain age, but also living at home for as long as possible is I wouldn't say it's seen as, like, shameful. Maybe in, like, the 50s or something, in North America, it was seen as shameful to, like, live at home past the age of, I don't know, like 14. It's always the stories you hear, right? My parents kicked me out when I was 13, and then I founded, you know, Amazon. We'll probably just take that. Let's see what we got in here. I mean, 15 cents for an item that's better than the 30-cent item sounds good to me, brother. It's pretty solid. We'll just grab that, I suppose, and we'll head down here. But I think people are like, you know, it's smart to live at home. It might be actually a little bit silly to leave home earlier than you really feel is prudent because you're setting yourself up, like, negatively. You're starting, like, financially on the back foot. And can I tell you, this is not a kids these days situation. I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. It makes a lot of sense. There's also a lot of, like, cultural differences, right? Like, at least, okay, sure, that's good. In North America, you know, the culture a little bit is like when you get yourself out on your own feet, you move out as soon as possible so you stop being like a burden to your parents. Or, like, as soon as you turn 18, they're like, well, I have no choice but to charge you rent now. And we won't even get into that because the climate's not right for it. And am I wrong? Or the climate's just not right in general right now. Come on, Exxon. Come on, Royal Dutch Shell Oil Company. Come on. What are you doing over here with your... What are you doing over here with your Suncor and your WTI crude and... Anyway, sorry. He do be spitting, though. But, like, I know in Korea, it was like a wake-up call for me when I was in Korea, and people, like, I'd work with teachers that were, like, in their late 20s and early 30s, and they lived with their parents still. And that's actually just the norm, is that you live, at least at the time, we're talking, it's like 10 years ago now, you live with your parents basically until you get married. So, and it's actually seen almost as, like, the way I understand it at least, is that it's, like, inverted. Like, instead of being, you know, the children being seen as, sure, why not, burdening the parents, and then the parents are free when the child leaves, it's actually more, we didn't, we paid with our HP. That's fine. It's seen more like, you know, while you're at home, you, like, you know, it's helpful for you to be at home for your parents, but then you, like, get to move out when you're married, because it's like, okay, you don't have to, like, do the dishes here anymore because you got to do the dishes in your own home and start, like, building a life. It's very interesting. I'm not saying one is 100% right, because it also leads to some funny situations, like in South Korea, it's very difficult for people who live at home to get privacy, so there's all these, like, businesses that are set up that are, like, they have a business case, but then also everybody's like, yeah, people just go there to, like, make out or, you know, beyond. Imagine my surprise, as somebody who just likes to, you know, they have things called DVD rooms in South Korea. I don't know if they still exist because I feel like Netflix has probably put a damper on it, but you would go, you'd, like, basically it was like a video store. Come on, man. Come on. Don't make me pick up this. You'd pick out some movies, then you get, like, a private room with a nice, like, lay-flat leather sofa or something to watch movies. Used to go to DVD rooms with my friends all the time. Said it to somebody who was Korean. They're like, what do you mean you go to DVD rooms with your friends? I was like, we just like to watch movies. And they're like, that's where people like unmarried South Korean young adults go to get some privacy, wink wink. I had no idea, man. I saw some of my favorite movies there. That's where I saw Speed for the first time. That's where I saw Max Payne. That's where I saw Gamer for the first time. And the only time, for the record, but who knew? So, I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's just different, man. It's just different. I feel like I've kind of, I mean, basically I owe my parents like a great deal because like I did move out. I moved out when I was 17 to live in the dorms. My first year of university, paid for completely by my parents. I stayed at, oh, it's so good, man. I stayed at home. No, we lose so much with you. You stinky. Just kidding. I'm taking you, of course. Are you crazy? It's like the best item in the game. Stayed at home that summer. Moved into off-campus housing after that. Rent paid by my parents. Hey, I paid utilities. Hey, I was still helping. Anyway, I don't even know why I'm telling this story. I should just lie about it and be like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps or something, but that's just not true. And then, so like after 3 years of living off campus, I moved to South Korea where my rent was entirely paid for by the school, but in fairness to me, it was really paid for by my labor because we were, you know, kind of underpaid relative to what an educator should be paid in the first place. And I stand by that. Based. What he's based. Secondarily, after that, then I moved back. I stayed with my parents for like a little bit. And then I moved to Vancouver, where since then my rent has been paid by advertisers on my YouTube channel and subscribers. So really, I'm not the kind of guy, and at least I own it, right? Like, I'm not the kind of guy that you should be taking, well, like sob stories from. Advice, I don't know. In some situations, I try to be open about situations where, like, I think I have some expertise, and in situations where I don't. I had to think about it for a second. I really thought we'd do a little bit better on the rate of fire than .007. Alas, doesn't always come to pass. But it's an interesting cultural change. I mean, doesn't it seem kind of like sad now that, like, when you think about, even when I think back to like my generation, the idea that like living at home at age like 25 was some indication that you're not like where you want to be in life. It's kind of sad, man, that you're like, oh, I just can't handle living with my parents, saving all this money anymore. Like, there's a lot of like fiscal benefit to living at home. I'll just go ahead and say it, by the way. Now, it depends on your situation in life. I think it depends on your kid's situation in life. Anytime I read, though, sure, why not? Like an you know, am I the butthole thread? And it's like, you know, as soon as I turned 18, my parents started charging me rent. I'm like, I don't think you're... Look, like, mom and dad, look, I'm not saying, I'm trying to avoid the reductio ad boomer, which is that don't care, didn't ask, plus you grew up in like an unprecedented economic bull run. Because, you know, there's lots of people who did very well for themselves from, you know, like 1980 until 2020. Better than the generation before them did, and probably better than the generation after them will do en masse, at least if you look at the averages. However, not everybody got to reap those spoils, you know? Most people were just knocking out the rent and trying to get by. That being said, there is... I was going to say, how long are you going to keep going there? There is a part of me that's like, you know, have you looked at, Mom and Dad, have you looked at the housing prices recently? You know, you bought this place for $50,000 in 1993. Since then, it's had a cumulative annual growth rate of like 13%. It's now worth $500,000, and you want me to pay you like $400 a month rent for what? Like, for what? Like, there's already a contingent of people out there who are, like, mad that they were born because now they have to get a job. well, my parents love each other, and now all of a sudden I gotta like pay tax or something. Like, there's a contingent of people out there like that. It seems like a stab in the back for your parents to bring you into this world only to charge you rent themselves. That's like, come on. We're supposed to be on the same team here. Now, that being said... Okay, we've opened it. We've opened the item room there. You know what? You know what? No. Don't give me that yet. Dude, we're actually going to win this run. It's dawning on me. We're going to win this. Not copium. It's not copium. We're going to win this run. Now, I will say, and the climate is not right for this either, but I do think in some situations, I would not say that charging, like, your preteen to use the services in your household is a good idea. But I guess I have a fundamental disagreement with some of the people in chat sometimes when, you know, people talk about, like, you know, making their kids do chores to get an allowance or something, and then people are like, oh, you know, forcing your kids into labor, not based. I'm like, you know, I think it can be a valuable lesson. Like, I kind of, like, roll my eyes at some of the hand-wringing when people go, like, you know, I make my kid mow the lawn and then vacuum their room once a week, and people are like, why can't we just let kids be kids? You can still be a kid. You just, like, vacuum your room. It takes, like, less than 10 minutes once a week. Just vacuum your room. You can still be a kid. You could be a squid as far as I'm concerned. A kid or a squid. But, like, you know, you could just, it doesn't ruin your childhood to do 10 minutes of chores, you know, once a week instead of just, like, you know, scrolling through whatever kids scroll through. I don't know what kids are in. Roblox.org? Reading the Roblox white paper? I have no idea. Regardless, I think charging your kid rent is where it kind of hits. Like, you remember there was that React Court episode where, like, a 16-year-old kid, his parents were charging him to use, like, the TV every week? Like, he would have to pay, I think it was like $10 a week for a license to use the TV, and you're like, you're actually teaching your kid, like, the worst lesson of all time, which is that nobody loves you. Because, you know, if you grow up charging your kid $10 a week to use the TV, that ends up getting, like, warped in their head and exaggerated and stuff like that. Like, they're going over to their friend's house, like, you know, their friend's like, hey, you want to watch the game real quick? And then they're like, oh, no, I already, you know, spent my budget this week. I already paid for my TV license at home. I don't want to double dip. I think they were charging them to use the bathroom, too. They were charging them, like, $1 a week to use the bathroom. Like, at that point, you're just giving them, like, an itemized list of things they need to pay you in order to survive. Like, it's not like using the bathroom is optional. You really want to put your kid in this situation where they're like, yeah, no biggie, I'm just gonna try, you know, holding it to save $3 a week or whatever? Like, that's just crazy, man. I think you're teaching them the wrong lesson. Like, you're teaching them the lesson of, like, my parents need to be taught a lesson. So I'm gonna take Fate's Reward, which may surprise you, but I want to save my reroll to be able... Oh, we're fighting. I want to save my reroll for a deal with the devil, because we're just crushing the game from a fiduciary standpoint right now. Anyway, I don't know. I guess, like, this is another in the long string of episodes that's basically like, it's funny how things change over time. Because definitely, I now look, and even though, like, the timing doesn't match up, and this may change in the future, but when I think back to, like, my own high school years, you know, I would watch a movie that took place in, like, the 1980s in high school and be like, whoa, that's ancient history. And now, I actually think, I don't know if you can relate to this, but it maybe depends on your age. I watch, like, a movie from the 1980s, and I feel like I have... Like, I'm not outside of their generation. Like, I actually feel like the millennials, at least my era millennial, which I guess is like mid-millennial, I feel like we have more in common with, like, the kids who went to high school in the 80s than the kids who went to high school in the 2010s. And I don't, or maybe the like late 2010s. I don't think it's a bad thing. You know, it's just a change in culture for sure. But I definitely look at, like, it's funny, but like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I didn't have that exact experience in high school. I was never Judge Reinhold just sitting by the pool and then, you know, someone came out and took their bikini off next to me or whatever. I've never seen it. But that kind of vibe, I definitely am like, yeah, I guess like I feel like culturally, people my age have more in common with people that are like in their 40s than people that are in their early 20s. But I could be wrong. You have to remember as well, you might call me like a boomer 32-year-old. I don't think that's the case at all, except... Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing? Except for the fact that I talk about stocks and bonds. I've been trying to stop. That I'll give you. But apart from that, you know, I'm... Compared to the average millennial, I think I'm like... I mean, of course I would say this, but... I think I'm like cooler than average, man. You know, sometimes I'll be walking around Vancouver. It's already kind of a cool city. And I'll see someone and I'll be like, that guy's definitely cooler than me. There's not... He's wearing the hat where it's like a beanie, but then the top of the beanie doesn't contain their head. It's kind of just like flat, but then they've pinched it in like exactly the right way. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking. They pinched it in the right way so it looks like they're in like a hat advertisement or something like that. I'm always like, that guy's cooler than me, no question. But when I'm outside or when I hear other millennials talk, there are a lot of times where I'm like, I'm trendier than you. Maybe not trendier fashion-wise, and definitely not with respect to hairstyles, but like sometimes, I mean, like, if I'm starting to become a bit of a self-loathing millennial, because I'll be like walking outside and I'll hear someone be like, mini avocados for the win, and I'm like, oh my god, you gotta stop that. We got like another, I don't know, on average, like maybe 50 years on this planet. If you could even take like 6 months to just wean that sort of stuff out of your vocabulary, I would be very happy. I know we grew up in the era of, like, you know, the snarky graphic tees, but I'm telling you, we gotta get over it. For the good of mankind. I can take it, I think. It sucks that was our deal, but whatever. And then there's a spirit heart in here. Thank you. Dude, we're actually gonna win this run. So yeah, like, honestly, I mean, this was not a kids these days sort of bit. It was actually like a, hey, you know, kind of like the way, not perfect, but I like the way that things are going to some extent. I feel like people are becoming more empathetic in some ways. And anytime I bring up, like, the younger generation, you should very much know that it's basically, it's very much couched in, you're only supposed to criticize things you really understand, and I really understand my own generation, because, you know, I think most people do. You're in, you know, school with people pretty much exactly the same age as you for, like, I don't know, 20, 25 years, basically. You know, you get a feel for what people in your age group are like. So, if anything, I'm overly critical of millennials. Hey, we're trying our best, okay? Adulting is hard when you've lived through 2 once-in-a-lifetime recessions. It's my impression of me. +2, thank you so much. +2, thank you, I really appreciate it, thank you. Here's my impression of millennials. Did you see the news about John Mulaney and Olivia Munn? Like, who cares? He's just telling jokes on the stage. Leave the guy alone, okay? Like, just relax. Just relax, okay? Okay, we're going up. Dude, I've never made it this far in the game before. It's a new era. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm lost. I'm all lost in the Isaac market. I can no longer fuck happily. I'm reminiscing, man. Honestly, I love the idea of, like, the DVD rooms in South Korea. I don't think they would work at all in the modern era or in North America. Like, it's, I think it's just a destined to fail idea. But sometimes you'd be like, you know, hanging out with your friends. We all had like crappy apartments. We'd be like, you know, what do you want to do? Hey, you know, we each pitch in like $5. You go to the DVD bong, pick out 3 movies. You can bring in your own food. You can bring in your own drinks. You can buy some there if you want, but they're cool about it, or at least they never said anything to us. You know, why, especially in the summertime, you know, in Daegu, oh man, that's a scorcher out there. It's regularly like in the 30s, sometimes even a little warmer than that, Celsius, because it's an enlightened nation. And then you just, you know, watch some movies, have a good time. It's pretty cheap, man. We need more, and I say this, Vancouver gets lambasted as being like a no-fun city, and I totally get it. Cause like I always tell people, they're, you know, sometimes in chat they'll be like, we're going to Vancouver for a conference, anything we should see while we're there? And I'm like, I don't know, there's like it's beautiful pretty much everywhere, but at the same time there's no like one thing where I'm like, oh, you gotta go to the MoMA, you know? It's like, I don't know, like you go to the Capilano Suspension Bridge, you gotta go to Stanley Park, but I know you're already going to Stanley Park. And apart from that, there's like a lot of good bars and restaurants, basically, and that's Vancouver. It's beautiful everywhere, but there's nothing that's really like, you gotta check this out. That being said, a lot of whether or not a city is fun seems to pretty much come down to like what the nightclub scene is like, and I hear people complain about the nightclub scene in Vancouver all the time, or at least on Reddit, which is ironic, but there's some Redditors who love going to the club, I'm sure. Regardless, though, I think there's just a dearth of, like, adult activities that you can do, and we need more. Like, let me expand upon my thesis. If you were going to hang out with your friends, what would you do? Maybe you'd go see a movie. Maybe you go get some drinks. Maybe you go see a sporting event. Maybe you go for a hike. Maybe you go shoot some pool. I don't know, like that's pretty much it, right? Maybe you go to a board game cafe or something like that. It's like the most recent innovation in the like adult activities market is like, hey, it's a place you could get a coffee, you can get a beer, and you can also play Ticket to Ride. And it's got some kind of cheeky name you would never expect, like, you know, Dungeons and Drafts. But draft is spelled like a draft beer. You know what I respect? I roll, I respect, the Respector has logged on, I respect. Definitely we respect that. Do not really respect that, but that's okay. That's why I'm like, we need more, man. Like Top Golf, we don't really have the space for it in the city, but like there's some screen golf places I was eager to go to before the pandemic really kicked off, and then also we had a baby, which makes this stuff harder to begin with. But you know, in like 15 years, when I get some autonomy back in my life, I'm building a list. Bowling, I always thought bowling was fun. There's a problem though, it's dying, and also it's kind of expensive. Like the thing about, like, you know, going out to get some, you know, snacks or some drinks or going for a hike is that that's like free. Anytime I've been bowling as an adult, I'm always like, really? Like there's nobody in the bowling alley, and it's like $10 a game plus $5 to rent the shoes. Like we could be spending like $30 each for an hour of entertainment. I maybe, and I like bowling. I used to play in a bowling league when I was in middle school, but like it's just it's kind of expensive by like very mundane, you know, habit activity standards. Plus, like, I don't know what it's like, man. You pay like, you know, $30 to go bowling and just have like kind of a crap night. Maybe you dropped a ball on your foot or something like that. Stuff like Top Golf Round 1, like more adult arcades and stuff, man. Maybe it's just, I know that Vancouver has had some like issues. You know, like, so there was a board, not a board game bar, but like a video game bar that opened here like right after I moved here. 10 years ago, and it was like a really cool idea. It was like almost on the cutting edge of that, like, hey, it's like a gamer bar. You can play games, you can watch esports, all the drinks are called like the Mana Potion and stuff like that. I remember we went there, and I was just surprised that they didn't give you, like, consoles at the table to play with or something, and they were like, oh yeah, we can't do that because the legislation for, like, entertainment is the same as the legislation for gambling or something. So, like, literally, just because gaming is not only video gaming, but could also be considered, like, casino gaming under the legal reading of the law, they couldn't have that happen at the bar without jumping through hoops and getting, like, a super tight liquor license or something, which is just crazy to me. It went out of business as a result. But this is the same city, and people don't believe this, but until 2016, happy hour was illegal in Vancouver. Why? I think it was like they didn't want to, like they thought, well, I don't know if they thought or it was just antiquated and they finally got around to changing it, but like, I'm just like, I guess it was, you shouldn't be able to sell alcohol for like half price because people might drink too much. And then who knows if they get a GameCube controller in their hand. Whoa, look out. It's like, dude, draft beer is like $9.50. Happy hour is like $5.75. You know, it's not usually not even a happy hour. They're like, oh, the good beers are normal price, but the crap that we just, you know, like take from the towel that we use to sop up all the detritus that ends up on the bar, we squeeze that out into a pitcher, and that's $4 a sleeve. Not even a pint, a sleeve. And the government wanted to take that away from you. Crazy. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps it a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. We won! And I'll see you next time. See ya.